we rammed into the back of a truck. And the car was really badly injured, but we were not. And I'm sure there are a few parents here. Your children notice when things are not going okay. They may be too young to ask you questions, but they feel it. Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. It's really, really, really nice to be with you here today. This year, let me say at the beginning of last year, when we turned into 2022, I went to my WhatsApp status and I wrote a year of significance. And then I let it be because it was something that was resonating with me. And then a week later, Vincent Otumbo gives me a call. We have met in various interactions with Vincent, and from what I know, he's a very serious young man. He has a lot of focus. And after exchanging pleasantries, he told me, every year I start my year with one person. This year, I want that person to be you. And I'm thinking, stories of significance. So he asked me, are you up to the task? And I say yes. Although, of course, it is something I had never done, but I said yes with confidence. I didn't even hesitate. And then, after a few weeks, he again asks, do you have a theme for your talk? And I say yes. All these things came very easy to me, I believe because I had set an intention. I set an intention, and now as the year goes on, I want to live in that intention. So thank you so much for showing up. My name is Hellene Otieno. And you may ask, who is Hellene? Hellene is a wife. I am a mother. I have 3 children, aged between 23 and 33. So they are young adults who are just coming to realize themselves. My husband is a retired hotelier, and we started our journey together almost 40 years back. So you can imagine how old I am. I was born in Kisumu. I am the second born in a family of 6 children, 3 boys, 3 girls. And we moved from Kisumu and came to Nairobi because my parents worked in Nairobi. And we also went to school in Nairobi. Now, my mother was a senior secretary in the government. My father was a personnel manager and a very honest person. One of my highest values is honesty. And I believe I got that from my father. So my firstborn brother, Owino, his name was Owino, was one of those children whom you recognize their leadership qualities very early in life. You know those children, you just see a personality. You know that from about 7 years old, we have a personality. So my brother was one of these children who my parents trusted him fully to take care of his siblings. And he loved that job very much. In fact, he used to run the house like a military camp. He had a stick. And that stick, he would put it behind his back. You know how those cops, wale wana cheo hapa, the way they talk, walk around, and make sure that things are working. That was Owino, my brother. His influence was, I would say, very, very strong in all our lives, his siblings. One of the things that he instilled in us was the culture of reading. Owino is the one who used to go to the library, and he would come and give you a book to read. And when he gives you that book to read, he would tell you to report back what you had read and what it had meant to you. Remember, we are very young, But you read that book, it's an Enid Blyton, it's a Famous Five, it's a Secret Seven. Read and please report back. And because he had read all the books, you could not skim over it. And he would tell my parents, if you're lazy or whatever, he would say, who are you? And a rega. You are so. And of course, my parents, those days, there was a lot of emphasis on children reading. So he taught me, he's the first person who taught me in-depth reading. And because of that, my siblings and I developed a very good command of the English language. And when I went to primary school, I went to a school that was a Catholic school. And the nuns were very impressed because I would not get any sentence wrong. In fact, to this day, if somebody speaks English that is not quite it, I feel it in my body. Have you ever felt anything like that? You feel when somebody is struggling and calling a she, a he, huwa inaniumiza. Yeah? Yeah, so he instilled that in us, and he laid a lot of emphasis on academic excellence because he was an A student. His influence was so strong that when my last born brother was born, at the age of 7, he started training him in chess. And today my brother is the chess champion in Kenya. His name is Ben. So such is the power of influence. There are things in our lives that influence us. There are seasons in our lives that we go through things. We may not know why you're going through it, but as you grow older, you realize this person made me who I am. So we went to the university, my sister, Owino, and myself, and we used to challenge one another on how far we would go in academics. So I graduated from the University of Nairobi with land economics. And like Vincent, I also wondered at some point why I had done land economics. Because some of these things, maybe it is what your parents wanted to do themselves. Because when I look back, there was a module called structural drawings. That thing used to stress me. And there are people who are so happy to draw. And they would draw it, yani, there was something called a T-square. And I'm looking and I'm saying, why am I doing this thing? But later on, guess what? Everything you do in your life, you will find that the dots connect. The dots connect. Like now, I've become a banker. And where I work, I normally work with security documents. So now it comes to me that I actually needed the land economics training then to understand the things that I'm doing now. So don't darau As you pass through whatever season, embrace where you are. So while my sister and brother decided that they want to do their masters, Helen decided I'm in a relationship, and once I finish, I want to have a family. And I was serious, I finished. Everybody was doing strategic management. I just did not. But now, I understand why I did not do strategic management. I decided, and no, the person I married was not from campus. Although, of course, I had my fair share of relationships in campus, but they're full of drama. Full of drama, kabisa. In fact, there was a young man that I used to date in our early years. And we used to be in an economics class together. Now, on Friday, the lecturer would just decide he has given you an assignment and he wants it tomorrow morning. And we are busy. We want to enjoy our lives. How is it to give us assignments? How do you give me an assignment on Friday? And there are all these things on the board we must attend by morning. So the young man used to come. I love you, Nasungwa. The young man used to come to my room while I'm glamming up, showering, doing my face, my hair. He's doing the assignment for both of us. He's writing his and writing mine. And then in the morning, earth is hard, my friend. In the morning, we have gone out, we have enjoyed ourselves. I'm even sleeping. He takes those papers to the lecturer. And on Monday or Tuesday, when the results come out, guess what? I've scored higher than him. Imagine. I like the way he's looking at me. He can't believe. Yeah. I've scored higher than him. And I used to wonder, really? And he was so dedicated. But I said, the drama, it's nice to have two men fighting over you. Like him, the drama sana. So I said, I'm not going to have a relationship with a campus man. So I met this really nice hotelier. By the way, he was a good guy. My husband was a good man. And we got married and we started building our family. So he was building his career. When I first started looking for a job, remember I studied land economics, so I was supposed to be a valuer or an estate, a property manager at the most. So I went for 3 interviews. And the interviewers, each of them, when it came to making the decision, they would start saying, young lady, are you sure your husband will let you go and value land in Kisumu, Bungoma, Mombasa, and you still come back to him? And of course I would answer yes. He knows what I studied, so he'll understand when I go. And they would say, no, I don't think so. So once I went for 3 interviews and they said no, I said, let me change direction. So my auntie used to work in an insurance company. And she used to organize vacational jobs. Those days they were there. It's not like today where you come out and there are no vacational jobs. So I worked there a couple of times. And so when I couldn't get my valuation job, she said, why don't you come and just start here as you look? So I joined the insurance company of East Africa, started in motor insurance. I stayed there for a year because I knew I'm going to move back into valuation or something like that. But it didn't happen. So on one of my performance conversations, I talked to the manager who we were having the conversation with, and I told him, I would love to move into banking. ICA was one of the late Philip Ndegwa's companies, and he's into property management, he's into shipping, he had all sorts of companies. So I said, let me go into banking. And when I went into banking, I thought it was temporary, but it was not. I stayed, I've been there, and I'm still a banker 30 years later. And so, those days, we were not that flexible. We thought we had to pursue what you had studied. But we must always have the will to change when things are not working, isn't it? Otherwise, you get frustrated, you stagnate. And so I went into banking. Banking is a stressful job. Banking, you work late hours. We are the financial advisors, but we do not handle our finances very well. Because you're always one step away from the next loan, isn't it? And you keep taking them because they're available. And of course, when you're younger, you do not have the financial knowledge to know that you should only borrow when you must. And so, this banking job was kind of stressful. I was working late hours. My children were young. My husband was also building his own career. At some point, he even left the country, left me with the children. And it got to a point where we were almost always out of the home. My children were being brought up by house helps. It is not a very good place to be. And especially when your employer demands more time out of you, you're working really late, but they are prepared to keep you there, they feed you, they tell you they leave and take you home. When I look back today, if I was to do it again, I wouldn't. And it got to a place where now, because you're working late, everybody's out of the house, mistrust starts to crop in, everybody wants to know where the other is spending their time. And then it strains the whole relationship. The home environment is becoming toxic, negative, because you're not spending time with the people you call your loved ones. You're focusing on something entirely different. And so in 2005, I lost my job. Now, I've lost my job. This home environment is strained. And by the way, parents, I'm sure there are a few parents here, your children notice when things are not going okay. They may be too young to challenge it, to ask you questions, but they feel it. And so my oldest daughter, whom I think kind of understood what was happening, she wasn't able to ask, but she would act out. And one day they used to have school transport where my husband worked, and they would drive the children to school and pick them up. And one day she just told the driver, she used to go to Nairobi Primary, she said, I'm not going to Nairobi Primary, I'm going to Consolata. And the driver told her, no, Natasha, you go to Juliet, you go to, your school is Nairobi Primary, not Consolata. And she said, no, I'm going there today. I had already gone to work. And so the driver dropped her there. And he went back and told my husband, Juliet said, you've told her to go to Consolata today. And he's in shock. How is it that she has decided? And he goes there to pick her himself and asks her, what is it? Why did you come to this school? He said, Daddy, I want this school. I'm not going back. And he's wondering why. Where did this come from? So the child is becoming withdrawn, becoming angry. She doesn't know how to express herself. She's calling for attention. So what I'm saying is, parents, wives, if you're a wife, be a wife. Those days, my husband would tell me, it's okay, just go. But of course, I had friends who are not married like me, isn't it? And I would still sit with them into those late hours. Because when your husband gives you permission to go somewhere, you can go and come back at 9 or 10 because you're married, Cindy. But I did not have the presence of mind to do that. And that is what strained our relationship. When I lost my job, it became a whole different matter. My husband had lost trust. He had gotten himself into another relationship. He wasn't now taking care of his children, and this was a good man. I dare say myself, this was a good person. And when we got to that place, he said he's no longer interested. So he left me with my 3 children. He didn't move out of the house, but obviously the strains were there. And the next thing, I found myself praying very fervently and asking God, would you just give me back my job so that I can take care of my children? That was my prayer. And when you pray to God, let's be very specific. I was very specific in my prayer. I told him, I don't want to stay in this town anymore. Can you just get me a job? Take me to Mombasa. I told him, take me to Mombasa. And a few months later, I was actually called for another job to come to Mombasa. No, actually, I was called for that job. I went for an interview, got a job in the bank that I'm currently working in, which is Absa. And then, like 4 months later, there was an opportunity to go to Mombasa. And I said, I will go. And so I had to move to Mombasa. You can imagine my children are in this environment. I have to go to Mombasa. They're in school. Their dad is no longer the dad I knew, the responsible one. But because I have to go and make a life and take care of these children, I made that tough decision. It was really tough. You can imagine, as a mom, you're leaving your children again to the house help and to your husband, who you're not even sure will take care of them. So I moved to Mombasa. I'm in a new town. This is a new job. I have no friends. I'm starting life afresh. And how old was I? I was 45. I left everything I had worked for over 25 years. I moved into a house without furniture, no crockery, no nothing. I just moved into that house because I had to start. So the first thing I did was to buy myself a bed. I bought myself that bed, and life started afresh. I was very broken. But when I went to the office, I looked very smart. happy, talkative, I was talking, I was okay, but inside, I was really broken. And so, my daughter, the last one, she was 10 years old when I moved to Mombasa. She would call me, when she comes from school, she calls me in the evening. And she said, every day she would ask, Mommy, did you get me a school? Because I had told her, I'll go to Mombasa. When I get a school, you'll come. So that was her question every day. She would ask me that. And she's asking, and she's also crying. So you're also crying silently, but you're trying to be brave, and you're telling her, I'm looking for this school. So we continued like that. Then one day I just got up. I went to Nyali Primary School, and I saw the headmaster, and I told him, I really need to get my daughter in school. And he said, we are in the middle of a term. I don't have any vacancies here. So I told him, my daughter needs to come to this school. Because I had checked, and he had come from Makini School. When I compared with Nairobi Primary, I think the educational standards were the same. So I asked, I went back the next day, and the next day, for 4 days, I went there until the 4th day he told me, you know what, bring her. And that day, when I went home and she called me, I said, we have the school. So my daughter came. She came with her other siblings, and she remained while her other siblings went back, and we started that journey to Lelala kwa mattress. She's wondering what has happened to us, how come we don't have furniture, but she's there with me, and she's okay, and she became my biggest cheerleader. We continued like that, pole pole, tukajaza nyumba, and at that point, everything was going well. I had a maid, I had everything. And then we get to a point where now, of course, you're in a new town, you must get friends, you need to socialize again. What I didn't know is that when you're in a certain state, when you're broken, when you're going through some things, you kind of attract the same kind of people that you're going through with the things that you're going through. So I got into company of friends, people who are hurting, who are broken, because of course, birds of a feather flock together, sindio? Nikaanza roller coaster ingine. Roller coaster tena. Because you want to fit in, you want to belong, you know? And this happened for some time, and we would go very far from where we were, driving at night, going to different places, until one day, when we were coming from one of these night streets, we had an accident at night. We rammed into the back of a truck. And the car was really badly injured, but we were not. And when I went home that day, when I woke up in the morning, I told myself, if I don't change direction, this is the way God wants people. If I don't change direction, the next time it will be catastrophic. It will be worse. And so that day, I made a decision. I told myself, I'm not going to live this life anymore. I went to church. I met a pastor there. I talked to him, and he started me out on counseling. And I also started to serve in church. I also got support groups to help me. In our church, we have life groups, people who just you sit with, you learn with, you grow with. It was a really, really dark place in my life, and I had to make the decision to change direction. And that is how I started this journey of growth. Now, those of you who have cars, you know, once your car has an accident, you start hating it for some reason. You start hating that car, you don't like that car. Whenever you see it, you associate it with bad things, isn't it? So there was a time, obviously that life also drains you financially. You dig a deep debt because you are not using your money to invest. You are consuming your money, all of it, for nothing. You're not doing anything. Unaimeza inatoka huku kwingine. Sio? So, after that, after the financial kuanguka, na nini, I decided to sell my car. There was a time my daughter had some arrears in school, and I said, you know what, I can sell this car. I can clear those arrears, and I can move on from this state. And that's what I did. When I sold my car, of course now I was using a matatu. This banker who is using a matatu, how now? But I said, I'm the only one who knows mahali nimetoka and why I'm doing these things. Sometimes don't follow the crowd. Do things that serve you. That's what I discovered. Do the things that serve you, that are going to move you to the next level. So, in the morning when I would go to work, I realized I spent like 1 hour to go, 1 hour to come, and I'm just sitting in the matatu. And I said, I had gathered a lot of books over time. I'd spent money on books because of what my brother had instilled in me. But what I had were many books that had not been read. And those books are called an anti-library. Do you know you have an anti-library in your house? The books you're not reading. Ziko tu. And there also used to be a guy outside my office. He used to sell books on the street. All sorts of books. And one day I just bent down and picked a book. And it was Robin Sharma's The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, The 7 Stages of Self-Awakening. That book changed my life. It truly did. Because one of the things that Robin Sharma emphasizes and where he begins is, you are a seeker. We are all seeking something. How you seek, what you're seeking, is entirely up to the situation that you're currently in. Remember, it is your present circumstance that motivates you to move to the next one. So, how do you seek? What are you seeking? That is where you start. And then you also need, light cannot exist where there is darkness. Is that true? Even in the Bible, it says the two cannot exist together. So in that dark place where I was, I could have chosen to cover my head and just keep being. But we need to become our own light. I needed to invest in myself, and I did. I started reading. I read, I attended conferences, I attended webinars, I went for talks like these. I did what I had to do because I had made a decision. I'm not going in that trajectory again. And of course, I had also dug a deep hole in debt. So what was I going to do that? I went for financial management classes. I sponsored myself because we often tell ourselves that when you have very little money, you can't save anything. You can. There are people who save 50 bob and they move. By the end of the month, if you are saving 50 bob every day, by the end of the year, how much money is that? And so I started that journey as well. I got into chamas. Today, I'm in 2 investment chamas, 2 investment groups. I just decided I am changing every facet of my life. So, what am I saying? Why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because we all go through different things in our lives, various seasons, and we are always moving towards something. Remember, if you're not growing, you're dying. Is that true? If you're not growing, you're dying. You cannot be at the same place you were last year and say unaishi. You need to invest in yourself. Be intentional. And that is what I did. I may not be where I want to be today, but I have certainly moved from a dark place and into the light. And another thing I learned over that time is that I need to be authentic. I don't need to tell stories that make me look good. I need to be real with myself. I need to be aware of my current situation and make the moves that move me to the next level. So, I will leave you with something that I learned this year at the beginning of the year when we were setting goals. There is a mentor of mine called Dr. Patricia Murugami. And when we were having our setting the goal conversations this year, she taught us 4 things in whatever season you're in. Number 1, you need to keep examining your will. It is your will that moves you to the next stage. If you make a private commitment, like setting your alarm at 5 a.m., how many people snooze their alarms here? How many? Tuko wengi. So if you don't honor your private commitments, your will becomes weak. Whatever you set out to do, remember these things are things that you're setting out as personal intentions. And so I learned that my will, that will that removed me from that nasty place, is extremely important. It will move you to your next level. It's your present circumstances that catapult you to the next one. Secondly, you are well. Well, W-E-L. How deep is your well? When I was investing in myself, that was my well. I spent money to educate myself, I spent time, and my eyes were open. Because when you're in a bad place, you see the world as very bad. But as you continue to learn, you unlearn some things and you relearn them. Because at some point, you didn't even know why you're doing something, the things that you're doing. You didn't know. You just did them. You are moving with the crowd, isn't it? So your well is your personal responsibility. How deep you dig it, so that you know when your well is deep, you're able to refresh others. But when it's shallow, it is simply for you. You cannot refresh others. Yes? And then there is your will. Then there is your weight. When you're in a season, how are you waiting in that season? Are you grumbling? Are you distracted? Or are you spending time learning something new, learning new skills, meeting new people, wondering who the influencers are, networking? That is a good way to wait. A good example of somebody who waits well is my daughter, Natasha. Natasha is a student. She has just graduated in journalism. But for the longest time, she serves in church. And she serves in an area where she knows she's honing her skills even before she gets the job. And she spends a lot of time doing that. She hardly deviates from that program. Even when we have visitors in our house, you will follow her program, or she will go and do what she needs to do and come back. So she's a good example of how you wait. I see her looking for a job, yes, but I see her also applying herself when she's waiting for that job. And the last one is your work. How are you creating excellence where you work? Whatever you do, how are you working it? Are you focusing? Are you moving yourself to the next position, whether it's at work or anywhere else? I remember there was a time I was thrown into the deep end of a new department. I did not know what was happening there. It had a system that everybody thought was so difficult. But because I'm a believer, I prayed and I told the Holy Spirit, please guide me. Today I'm the guru in that system. And I used to ask myself, will I ever understand this system? And the people who knew it then would tell me, Helen, you will understand it and you will excel. But if I hadn't put in the work, I don't think I would have. So that would be the focus that I want to leave you with. 10 years later, not many people know that I was with my husband for like over 30 years, and in 10 of those years, we were separated. But because I learned at some point about the power of forgiveness, because I would say, I've suffered so much with my children, will I ever forgive this person? He has put me through so much pain and in what and what not. Of course, I know people will say it serves you right for what you did and messed up your own marriage. Because women, we are pillars in our homes. And when things get messed up, you're the one who gets the blame. So when my father-in-law died, I went back to my husband's home, and we had a chance to talk and start a healing process. And because of the support group that I had in church, and there is a book called Wisdom for Mothers that we were studying at that time, I learned to forgive. It is a painful process. It doesn't happen overnight, but it is doable. And I once attended a forum where we were talking about doing life, how we need to live our lives. And the power of forgiveness stuck out for me. And one of the things that we were told to do in that forum was to write to people who had hurt us painfully. Whoever they are, many of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, put their names there, put what they have done to you, and then at the end of it, say you have forgiven them and tear those things and let it be. Easier said than done, yes, but it begins a process. And when you have a support group with you, it will happen. When you have faith that it will happen, it will happen. So we got back with my husband. We are together today. And we are still walking this journey because life is a journey. We go through seasons, some of them break us, but ultimately we rise stronger than before. So wherever you are, be there, be present, embrace whatever you're going through, but also be prepared to just grow and move on to the next level. The late Maya Angelou said, "Be present in the present gratefully." Thank you very much.